to continue to work. No, we were just kidding. Anyway, so that's him on a wakeboard with an American flag with what's the song that was playing there? It was Take Me Home, Country Roads. He is a billionaire who has maybe individually done more damage to this country, our political discourse, our respect for fact than anyone other than, I don't know, maybe Murdoch. And he's got the flag. So if you're a conservative, this is how that works. He gets to just have the flag. You don't like him, right? He's bad, he's fake news. He hates Trump or whatever. But he just has the flag and he's super patriotic despite all of what he does to America. We can agree he's bad, right? So this is how easy it is. You should be as suspicious when you see a politician posing in front of an American flag as when you see a douchey cybernetic being on a wakeboard holding one. That's what I would ask of you on this 4th of July.
I want people to look up.
Final thought.
Yeah, if people look up the kind of board he's on and understand if you can afford that and how American that is.
What is it?
It's one of those like it's a you saw the post into the water. It's like a self-propelled surfboard in a way, but not a surfing style board. You just fly down the water on a self-propelled board, and rich people can afford these. I remember looking it up because I thought it was the coolest thing ever, which it's pretty cool.
It is.
And of course, you can't get it at your local Dick's for $89. Absolutely not.
That's true.
I forget the name of it, but it's the epitome of people that are able to afford something like this. While you throw American flag on it to make sure everyone else that can't, and also that doesn't have any opportunity to get to that point because of the way our system is put together, to look at it and go, "That's America," because it is. Yeah. Only people like him can do that.
That's true. Yeah, it's like he's doing that to represent America, and yeah, he nailed it. That is America, basically. That's wonderful. Anyway, so sorry for the tech problems that cut into us a little bit, but we do have a lot planned for this shorter week. Francesca Fiorentini is gonna be joining us for Big News Wednesdays. We're gonna see if it's even bigger than usual. We're gonna find out together. Abelina Sabrina is gonna be joining us on Thursday, and on Friday, we have a very special guest for our garbage people. Special in that he has not been around for a bit, but supposedly Brett Ehrlich is going to be joining us once again, so that should be a lot of fun. JR Jackson, as always, thank you for joining us on this special Big News Tuesday.
Absolutely. The reason I'm not here tomorrow is because I'm going down to the South. Where in the South? Maybe I'll let you know. I'm going to Louisiana, New Orleans, Baton Rouge.
Fun.
We'll be
there.
Wear
your mask, but have fun.
Yes.
And for all of you watching, we're gonna take a little break, but when the stream returns, it will be Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie. But you know where you should go to watch that? Go to youtube.com/indisputable_TYT. You can subscribe. The show is awesome. They're having a ton of fun. Adrienne Lawrence is gonna be joining him on the show today. So you're definitely gonna watch that, or gonna wanna watch that. But thank you. We're gonna go talk with Dave Leventhal. That video will be up on the channel very soon. So until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.
Hey, I missed y'all. Did y'all miss me? Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richey. We have a heck of a show. You don't want to miss the I Wish a Karen Would segment today. We have literally found a Karen who hates dogs and people. Also, my debate guest will be Ben Q. Ben Q is a columnist, and we're going to talk about taking a knee, Black Lives Matter, and how sports and politics intersect. Ben says it should not. I say it absolutely should. Should be a great debate. And breaking down news of the day, we have back Adrienne Lawrence, author, attorney, and TYT contributor on the show. Let me start with my top story. You know how people say, well, if you're black and you get pulled over, you're doing nothing wrong. If the cops find out that you're doing nothing wrong, they would just let you go. There will be no issue. All you have to do is comply with their demands. And once they find out that you're not the guy, they let you go because they need to proceed to do their job. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring your attention to Las Vegas, where literally a black male was pulled over, guns drawn. They had like a whole damn SWAT team behind him, and it was the wrong guy. But they knew it was the wrong guy. They started to communicate with each other. We have the wrong guy. But did that stop them from having their weapons drawn? No. Did that cause them to immediately apologize and go find the actual bad guy they were looking for? No. Did it cause them to change their demeanor and be nice to the individual who was an innocent civilian that got caught up in their wrong conclusion? No, they did none of that. They proceeded to arrest the guy, then check his vehicle, and I'm gonna tell you what that's about in a moment. So a TikTok appears to show Las Vegas police pulling over the wrong car, but still putting the driver in handcuffs. Two separate clips were posted in late June showing several police officers standing outside their cars with their sirens blaring, pointing their guns at another vehicle off screen. Alas, despite their error, they continue to instruct the driver to get out of the vehicle and walk slowly towards them. They tell him to settle down, to which he says, "You've got guns on me. What the F do you mean settle down? That's my house right there." They soon put handcuffs on this man, on him, while officers decided to check his van. Now remember, they know this is not the right guy they're looking for. Despite knowing it isn't the car, before seeming to ask him to apologize to them in return for them saying sorry for their error. "Just get me out of these cuffs and let me go about my day, please and thank you," he says before he's let go. I got that video. Here it is.
Take your seatbelt off and open the door. Hey. What? Hey. Now, man. Don't go reaching for nothing here. Man, stay over there. Just get back. So get back.
The man is yelling, "This is my house," and he's literally pointing to a house that everyone can see. He has to be terrified. I know if I was in that situation, I would be terrified and horrified. You have guns drawn at you. They are pointed in your direction. You have all of these white men yelling at you, and you have done absolutely nothing illegal, nothing wrong, and nobody will tell you what's happening. Well, in all of that confusion, they started to say, these cops started to say among themselves, "We got the wrong person. We got the wrong guy." But that did not stop them from proceeding to arrest the wrong guy, put him in handcuffs, and then deciding to just check his vehicle. Now, let me tell you why they did that. They did that because it would have justified their mistake if they found something. That's why they did that. They wanted to continue to act as if, hey, this is still a bad guy, and even though we made a mistake in this conclusion, he's a bad guy, so we're going to get him off the street. It was the same philosophy they used against Saddam Hussein, by the way. Oh, they're weapons of mass destruction. Whoa, no weapons of mass destruction, but he's still a bad guy, and we still have to do this thing to him. Here's what ended up happening. They do apologize as they are taking the cuffs off of him. Damn your apology. You should not have arrested him in the first place. Damn your sentiment at this moment. You knew you had the wrong guy when your guns were aimed at him. Adrienne, welcome to Indisputable. You are an attorney. I have to understand, how is it that every police officer knew by radio communication they had the wrong person and they were still able to put him in handcuffs, check his vehicle? How can they do that?
Well, the question is, how can they do that lawfully? What the police are going to say is that it wasn't an actual long-term arrest. It was merely a momentary detainment. Of course, you'd say, hey, well, they put him in handcuffs, so clearly there has to be a Fourth Amendment violation there somewhere. And I would arguably say that there is definitely something that's being communicated here that says we are going to deprive you of your civil rights. Once we realized that there was an error, we should have stopped and retreated. But instead, we decided to continue to denigrate you and make you feel lesser by now purporting to act as though we have probable cause to search your car. And I think a lot of people don't realize how scary, how upsetting, and it hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will and essentially treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. And this is something that Black people face no matter where they are. That kind of assumption of criminality, the fact that they feel it's okay to detain you even though you've done nothing wrong. And this is another example of that.
This unarmed Black male who did nothing illegal could be dead right now. He could be dead right now. If he would have been a little more argumentative, if he would have been more outraged than he already was. Hell, if he would have just turned around fast rather than walking backwards as they demanded, he may have been shot and killed. And this could have happened, Adrienne, ironically, with the cops having knowledge that he is not the person they are looking for. Now, I have another question, a legal question. If they would have found something in his vehicle, let's say some marijuana, would that have been considered a good arrest, meaning lawful, or bad arrest, meaning unlawful?
It depends on the arguments that the police made, because generally there's a doctrine that's called fruit of a poisonous tree that kind of suggests that if you get some fruit and it happened to come from a poisonous tree, then you can't use it. So in that case, evidence that you obtain through illegal means, then you can't use it in court. And so that would be something that this gentleman's attorneys would argue. But of course, the cops might say something of, well, we would have discovered it anyways. It wouldn't have mattered because we had probable cause to go ahead and arrest him or to detain him and to hold him there. Or we had some kind of legitimate thought that there could be criminality going on afoot. And thus we had legal justification for searching. It always becomes what did the officers claim they knew and what arguments can an attorney make? But at the end of the day, this person, I would expect them to sue the department for the civil rights violation here.
You talked about the Fourth Amendment right being violated. That's your right to due process. And you can argue, and I'm sure you can make a very good argument that there was a deprivation of that. And the police officers were well aware that this individual should have never been detained. What does that mean in a civil proceeding? What could actually happen to that police department, or what could that benefit the individual who launches a lawsuit?
Sure, so the Fourth Amendment is your right against unreasonable searches and seizures. So they have to have probable cause for the government to take you or to take anything that belongs to you. And the Supreme Court has chipped away a little bit at that doctrine by saying that there are instances in which you're not gonna have a full seizure, as in you're not gonna necessarily have someone handcuffed and they can't leave without their free will, that this is merely a momentary detainment for the officer's safety. And so these lesser degrees of detainment, they still invoke the Fourth Amendment and at least the doctrine that has come from that. And so that is the important part to focus on when it comes to what would be your Fifth Amendment due process rights. But when it comes to how it would work here in this situation, if this individual were to file a civil suit, what they would be suing on is a violation of their civil rights, that they do have those protections to not be in a situation where you're just walking the streets and the police maybe target you because of your race or because of your gender or because of some kind of protectable quality that you happen to hold. And it seems here that this man is definitely Black, and that the officers, regardless of their race or color, because as we know, white supremacy is what reigns in our society, that they are essentially infringing on his civil rights.
Yeah, and thank you for correcting me on transposing those constitutional rights. That's why you're the expert, Adrienne, and you're on the show to break it down. What possible reason would they have to go and search the car? I get it. I get the argument on the when we put them in handcuffs and search them for our own protection. But what does the car, the vehicle, have to do with it once they were aware that there's no actual criminality happening here?
Oh, well, once they're aware, they really don't have any justifiable cause to search the vehicle. But generally, it's a thought that because your car, it is in interstate commerce, it's moving, it's not like your home that's supposed to be your kingdom, that you have less of a right to protect it in terms of not having it searched. But generally, when it comes to cars being searched, the thought initially is at least it's some kind of thought that there must be criminality going on in some form or fashion. And the thing is here, once they realized they had no probable cause whatsoever, that they had the wrong guy, that they also have no indicia of thinking that there is any kind of criminal behavior going on, they have no cause to search the car other than really kind of maybe racism a bit. So I'm sure the officers will claim, hey, well, we're just doing a safety sweep or whatnot. And it'll be a question for essentially people with legal minds to have to make their arguments.
Yeah, I hope this brother sues the hell out of them. So we will continue to watch the story and bring people updates as it develops. Let me switch gears for a moment. This really brought a lot of joy to me. The Patriot Front group, AKA Patriot Front cowards, decided to put on white masks. Sounds familiar. And they had the great idea. Now, they're out of Texas. They had the great idea to travel all the way to Philadelphia to stage some kind of mob, flash mob, white supremacy style protest. This happened on the eve of July 4th, and it happened, it was late at night. And I think part of what they wanted to do was to be there right when it hit 12 midnight so they could claim that that's where they were located when the 4th of July hit. This was about 200 members of this white supremacist group named Patriot Front. They marched outside of Philadelphia City Hall Saturday night, chanting, and I quote, "Reclaim America." And they also chanted, "The election was stolen." General terms now for bigots and white supremacists. Now, here's what happened when the Philadelphia Welcoming Committee saw what was going down.
Don't be bitches. Don't be bitches. Show your face.
Too scared to take the mask off. Too scared.
Shame. Shame on you.
Too scared to.
Oh.
Bitch. Too scared to take the.
Oh, you called my mama a bitch.
Get out of here.
Oh my God, tear gas, guys, get. Huh? There's tear gas.
So they made an escape with like a gas smoke bomb or something, like their Darkwing Duck, right? So they got up out of there as soon as they got up in there. Because the Philadelphia Welcoming Committee wasn't having it. Now, according to reports, there were multiple scuffles. We do not have any report from the police department that there was any arrest made. But here's a quote from Philadelphia police officer Michael Crum. Michael Crum says, they started engaging with citizens of Philadelphia who were none too happy about what they were saying. These males felt threatened, and at one point, somebody in their crowd threw a type of smoke bomb to cover their retreat, and they literally ran away from the people of Philadelphia. Can I just go back? Can we just play the retreat? Let's go back to the retreat when they were running away.
Yeah, you real. Yeah, you real. You real tough. You real tough. Stupid idiot.
Yo,
They trying to escape. He's their bitches.
Look at them loading into their little white supremacist vehicle. They traveled all the way from Texas to damn to get their ass kicked. And while they are running away, you can hear people continuing to taunt them and say things that I think are quite appropriate for what they attempted to do. But ladies and gentlemen, did you notice that they had toy shields? I promise you they ordered those shields from Walmart. That's not making America great again, because I promise it was also made in China. All right, Adrienne.
Oh, you know what? And I also saw that they had the little khakis on and the navy polos. I think they ordered their entire. Yeah, no, that's exactly the whole nonsense brigade. They got as one package of fits at Walmart. And it's like they also happen to get their intellect off of the floor at Walmart, just fooled. And to watch them running, it's like, how are you gonna show up in a major city that is also pretty diverse, and you're gonna show up with this white supremacy nonsense? People don't, like the new white supremacy is more low key. It's they're not a good fit for the culture, or I tried. They're not out here wearing the white hoods and the masks and thinking they can get away with it. So I think these young men missed the memo, and they thought that they'd go real hard in a place that they're not ready for the okie doke.
I just wonder who's in charge of ordering their gear. Like, who's that tough guy? Who's the person sitting in front of the computer saying to the rest of the white supremacist mob, hey guys, this is gonna be the outfit for today. We're gonna make sure we have khakis with crease. We're gonna put these white coverings over our face, blue shirts, and then we're gonna go to Penske and we're gonna rent from Penske. So Penske Truck Rental, they had a statement and they put this statement out. And it says, Penske is not affiliated with this group and does not condone it in any way. Use of our vehicles for this purpose is unauthorized. Transporting people in the cargo area is also prohibited. We will take action with the renters of the vehicles involved. Penske is like, keep my name out of this.
Exactly, you know good and well, Penske's like, that's not the time for advertisement we want. Same thing with those tiki torches. Gotta feel bad to some extent for them. But they won't be going out saying that they're not going to be renting vehicles anymore to middle-aged white men. So I really don't know what's gonna change.
Yeah, and I really hope Penske makes a more definitive response to this. Obviously, they are talking in a silo right now, relating to the situation. But I want Penske to talk about the general sentiment, and talk against white supremacy in very specific terms, because that's what it is. And we've come to a place, Adrienne, where many people are afraid to call a thing a thing.
Correct.
And we need more leaders, especially in corporate America, who are willing to call it exactly what it is. These were white supremacists, members of a white supremacist organization who committed acts of criminality. There were scuffles. So you have your simple battery assault. You literally had trespassing happening in Philadelphia. They were unwanted guests, obviously, but there were no arrests made. There were no arrests made whatsoever, according to the reports that we've been able to obtain. And that lies the frustration that many of us feel. I promise you this, Adrienne, if you would have put 200 Crips in one of these cargo buses and you traveled, I don't know, let's say to Milwaukee, and they did this in front of any Capitol in Milwaukee, somebody would have been arrested.
Absolutely, a few people would have been shot and possibly murdered. It's this thing that always gets me, historically speaking, with wearing the hoods, creating that figment of your imagination. So you can say these things like racism are just a figment of your imagination. They're just a ghost, they don't actually exist. And it just reminds me of the fact that that is how racism continues to breed, to move forward in our society, because people are afraid to acknowledge it, to say the word, and it keeps things as ghosts and people saying, oh, it's just a figment of your imagination. And we need to call these things out, to say white supremacy, to say these individuals are white supremacists. Call it what it is.
Call it what it is, very well said. We have more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. Now,
We'll see. We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone.
Okay, sorry. I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me into Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby.
You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT.
The place is like 95% TYT on.
Favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Cenk and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
All the people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always change this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back, Indisputable. We got a lot of comments. Let me read some of these viewer engagements. And remember to follow us on social media, Indisputable TYT, hashtag Indisputable TYT on Twitter, so we can get your comments in. Also, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Indisputable TYT, Indisputable TYT. Because of you, we're at 120,000 subscribers, all right, because of you. Okay, let's get to it. TYT member Diana says, we did miss you, Dr. Double R. I don't think I can put up with a Karen who hates people and dogs. Well, you will today. Thank you so much for saying that. LMG15. I bought Adrienne's book a few weeks ago and I love it. Everyone needs to read it. Beautiful, what a plug. And we'll make sure she announces once again the title of that book and how to get it. Cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug, says, LOL, they know that Philly don't play. Twitch, huge raid, thanks Mike from PA, Central Committee. Thank you, Mike. That's huge. 1,146 viewers, then a 733. BC Trumpet gifted 5 tier 1 subs. McGauntlet gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Thank you all so much for that love. All right, thank you. Vegas Cop, let's talk about it. Fat guy named Tiny. If not for the camera, how much you want to bet this would have become, I thought I saw a gun, murder? YouTube super chat. Bradley says, deep cuts with Dr. Richie, dark winged duck.
Yes.
Yeah. Scott John says, please keep dropping these truth bombs, and we shall. Thank you. Tony D, TDR Dragon Family says, hello, Dr. Richie, and I say hello back to you. Thank you so much. Undecided says, probably not a good idea for white supremacists to hold a rally in a city where black people are the majority. Just a thought. They tried it though, didn't they? Yeah. Lavender, thank you so much for that, Lavender. John Mad Dog Hall, thank you. Forbeszilla, thank you so much for that. Sister Soul says, but if that was Black Lives Matter, the National Guards would have already been there. Yep, they would have met them there, actually. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
You're still free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
You know what we do. We highlight Karens across this country because Karens are dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet a Karen who has gone unchecked and unrestricted. She has roamed the countryside so long that her hate has now permeated to domestic animals. Yes, a Karen that hates dogs. Now, she probably hates this dog because she hates Asian people, and because the dog belongs to an Asian couple, she hates the dog as well. So meet this Karen who created an argument because the pet of this Asian couple did not have a leash. Well, she seemed to be, I guess, concerned at first, but literally this Karen tried to then kill their dog. Here it is.
Have you never heard of a leash in the city? Really? Really? Okay, we'll wait for the police to clear it up.
Yeah, go call them. Karen, please, Karen, call them. Karen, get your phone now and call the police.
I'm just waiting for him to come by.
And which country should I go back to, Karen? Huh? Say it. Now you cat got your tongue?
Cat got my tongue?
Oh, yeah?
Really?
Yeah.
Edit it out. Go ahead, edit.
Edit what out?
Come on, puppy!
What about no?
Come on!
That's incredible. I'm just passing by, and you're actually trying to instigate a dog to go into the middle of a highway? What kind of problem do you have, lady?
Like, seriously, put it out there. Put it out there that you can walk around without your dog on a leash.
You know what? Put it out there that you can insult someone of Asian descent, and then also try to instigate a dog to go in the middle of the street because you're unfixable for whatever reason.
They don't want to go down and find the police at the station. It's right there.
They're wasting tax dollars and police time. I mean,
they don't put a leash in your country?
Oh yeah, which country is that? Bola, come here. Bola, come, Bola. Bola. Come here.
Great. You're lovely. Come on, puppy, come.
Karen, what happened, Karen? Karen, over here. We're over here. Over here, Karen. Yeah. Over here. You just did.
Have them come over.
Have them come over here. Have them come over here, Karen. I'm right here. Have them come over here. Have them come over here. You're harassing them now.
You are going to make the police get out of the car.
You are.
Put it on all over the web, baby. Put it all over the web. Such wonderful people.
Karen, white entitlement was 2020.
Wonderful
All right.
people.
Yep.
Go, go, go. baby. No.
Our campaign against Karens is obviously working because that NYPD officer was well aware this was a Karen situation. He did not need to get out of the car. He did not need to take a police report. He did not need to figure out what was going on. He knew right away, this is a Karen, and I need to sit my behind right here in this police cruiser and do absolutely nothing. The person behind the camera was aware this was a Karen situation as well immediately and started calling her Karen. But think about the irony and hypocrisy that is involved here. She disguises herself as a concerned New York City resident, as a person concerned about this small pet, and then she tries to kill said pet. Adrienne, what crimes were committed here, if any?
Well, if anything, that new law that's passed in New York for these Amy Cooper Karens out there, that definitely seemed to be violated to a certain extent, as this woman seemed to be very happy to contact the police to sick them on this Asian couple after she's the one who instigated the insanity. And it just it's so old, the whole I'm just a concerned citizen, really? Or are you just trying to regulate other people as opposed to minding your own business? And clearly that was her agenda here. And it was just, it's the anti-Asian sentiment, it's really flowing through here, whether or not she's completely and totally egregious about it, it's clear.
But think about how deep the hate has to be for you to want to actually kill an animal. You want to kill this domestic pet because this domestic pet is connected to the people that you are racist against. So now you want to actually make sure you lead them to death. If the pet would have been hit by a car because of her very intentional actions, could she have been charged with something criminally?
Oh, without question, absolutely. She essentially lured the dog into the street. That has to involve some kind of animal cruelty. And if nothing, also the couple would have a claim against her because it is an animal, but it is their property as well. So it's destruction of property. And and the sad part is that people who claim to be concerned citizens or claim to be animal lovers, they're the first ones willing to sacrifice it in the name of racism.
Yeah, this was one of those extreme situations that obviously this Karen did not care about the animal, but it was the pretext. And I think this is important to highlight. Typically, Karens of the world will provide a pretext, and the pretext is false. But it is a pretext to create engagement, adversarial engagement. In this case, the pretext was your animal does not have a leash, okay? That is the pretext. Now, because of this pretext, I must now regulate your behavior. I must put you in your place. And when you do not go in your place as I'm trying to put you, then I'm going to use law enforcement in order to control you. It's like slave patrol. That's how they want cops to be used. And we've seen this routine over and over again. Adrienne, is it ever going to get old for these Karens?
No, not at all, because they've essentially been born and bred with this mentality, this privilege of the thought that the police are against people of color, and so that's an extension of me. I can call the police, and it doesn't matter if I'm telling the truth or not. I can just make something up, and I'll tell them that that person of color or that person of a marginalized class or group did something to me, and thus they will defend me. And so there are a lot of white people who have this built already into their psyche, and they will weaponize it whenever getting the chance. But the reality is that won't go away until white supremacy goes away, and I don't know when that's gonna happen.
Yeah, you make a great point, Adrienne, because literally this happens because of the atmosphere she has been born into, because of her 3 E's, experiences, exposures, and environments, and a belief system that says I can do this because this is how I get protected or can be protected if I call the police. Now, what has to happen? You can't just talk about Karens in a silo because they're part of a systemic structure. They're part of a systemic expression. If you did not have law enforcement typically working hand in glove with the Karens of the world, you would not have these Karens of the world feeling so aggressive and emboldened to do what they do. But you got an awakening happening of sorts, to where this is becoming more and more highlighted in our culture as a big no-no. And law enforcement should not be in the business of protecting these individuals who would like to weaponize their whiteness against others. Let me shift gears. This is a really, really compelling story that I'm about to get into. There's a man, Mount Laurel guy. He's been arrested following a viral rant. Now, you will see in this video, he's Mr. Tough Guy. I mean, he walks up to a black family's apartment or condo. He's all up in their face. I mean, he's just really, really a tough guy. Let him tell it. He has a racist rant. He calls his neighbors the N-word multiple times. This is in a quiet South Jersey neighborhood. And it shows this really, really not quiet white guy who decides to just act like a thug against his neighbors. You will notice that the police who responded, the police officer, was aware of who this guy was very friendly to him, even though the white male was very hostile. Here's part of that video.
Tuesday, the front in Cherry Hill, the daughter got smashed. Exactly. Is that what you want? No. And you want to know where I was when all this happened? I don't care. At work, monkey. I don't care where you were. At morgue. Just like I told the Mount Laurel police, get these monkey out of here, and you can't do it. That's me talking. 3602 Gramercy Way, that's where I live. Come see me.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, White, why are you back over here?
Well, somebody called me.
Someone called you, it's private property. You have no jurisdiction here whatsoever.
I do when somebody calls me.
Hold on.
I need back up.
You know what?
Up,
hold on.
Back
Go ahead.
up.
No.
Back
I'm gonna let
up,
you do your thing. Go talk to these. Go ahead.
Stop.
You go talk to let them know what I'm all about and what their rights they have.
All right. You want to go back to your house? I'll come back to you.
No, I'll stay right here. It's common property.
Okay.
Have a nice night. I'm gonna let you guys get an education right now.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'll do my job. Right?
No problem. I'm not going away until your husband stops finding me and threatening me while I'm at fucking work.
Cagney, cut it out, man.
Oh, wait.
Talk to them.
Arrest me.
I'm not
arresting
you right now. Relax.
You
just cut it out, dude.
That's what you can see, Brandon. 3602 Gramercy Way. Come see me, you.
Please come to see you.
I mean, isn't he interfering with the investigation? Is this not maybe obstruction of justice? Interfering with the law enforcement officer? Do they not need to put him in handcuffs until they figure out what's going on? Doesn't he need to be detained momentarily? Does he not need to be separated from the incident since he is the obvious aggressor? None of that happened to him. What did he get? He had, hey, have a good day. I'm gonna go do my job over here. That's what the cop told him. The cop was respectful. The cop was courteous. And this cop decided to not engage this individual, racist, aggressive individual who just committed a battery, just committed assault, but not even engage him as a criminal whatsoever. That's what just happened here. Now, he gave out his address. You heard the guy give out his address. I didn't give out his address. He gave out his own address. Well, some people decided to follow up. Here it is.
No, I don't know. You didn't have kids. I think he has a girlfriend. He's just
either way, listen.
I'll do it myself. He's gonna get passed over the crowd.
He gave out his address. He told people where to meet him at, and they decided to take him up on the offer. So they went to his address. About 2 days after being outside of the house, the man identified as Edward Cagney Matthews. Edward Cagney Matthews was finally arrested on Monday. Here's some of that. It took all of that to get one white male arrested for physically assaulting a black family, for trespassing on a black family's property, and for generally being antithetical to a proper investigation of a police officer who responded to the scene. It took all of that to get an arrest. Now, this guy claims that he simply, and I quote, lost his temper that day. However, we have some video footage from a few years ago of a prior incident, and here's some of that video footage.
That's why nothing's happening. I sell drugs. That's what I do. That's what I've always done around here. I stopped, went to prison 3 times. Now I have all the friends with the cops. If you guys want to keep doing it this route, we're going to go the legal route. You're not going to get any help from the cops because they're my people. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's why you're not getting anything. And I know that you've said that. The cops came down and told me, they said, what do you want us to do? So you can figure that out. We're not trying to cause you a problem. You're not trying to cause us a problem, right?
I've never been trying to cause you a problem.
Right. So there's no reason for the cops to come back around. We should be perfectly cordial, be able to have these conversations and be able to live around here with no problem.
Yeah, but not what you're talking about, oh, the cops aren't going to help you, or calling my brother. I don't bother you. I don't do anything.
Calling your brother.
Yeah, you did do that.
No, I said, now I'm going to call the cops like That's what I said. I didn't call your brother I said, now here I go looking like a calling the cops. This is exactly what I said.
Well, we all heard it.
We all heard you?
We all heard it, yeah. Everybody outside. I couldn't believe it because I wasn't even in the argument.
Right, and you weren't even there either.
Yeah,
and
I came outside up top.
Keep doing what you're doing, and then we'll turn it around another way. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, so let me get this right. He's a former drug dealer, but now the cops work for him, according to his narrative. He obviously is very comfortable utilizing the N-word, and he was trying to make sure that obviously this female did not call the police, I assume, on him again. This is just wow. Adrienne, why do you think it took so long for the police to actually do something after the video evidence was already out there?
Oh, well, as to the video you had just played, I don't know if that's alleged to be that man or if that is that man. But what I can tell you is that I have read accounts from the neighbors in that area saying this man harasses them regularly, uses racial epithets, has kicked in doors. And so he's pretty much operating as though there are no limits or restrictions on him whatsoever. Kind of this thought that he is working in conjunction with the police. And that kind of seems to be maybe possibly the case. If not his whiteness, it holds a whole lot of power there, because as we saw in the first clip, police were not going to in any way regulate him. White men get to have bad days where they're threatening other people and posing a threat. But anyone else in this world, my God, they get stopped the moment they shed a tear or in any way even look as though they're angry. And this becomes the issue as we saw on January 6th, when the dangerousness of white people is not seen as being just that dangerous. We have problems like this. We don't know what that man would have done to that family if the police still didn't show up. Instead, they had to have at least 100+ people go down there and march and chant for hours in order for the police to actually take action. That's not okay. It's a threat and danger to us all.
It is so extreme, but I'm almost believing the guy because of how the cop responded to him when the initial call was made, because of his previous recorded conversation where he said, listen, the cops know me, the cops work for me. He seemed as if he was a cop when that police officer responded to that scene. And Adrienne, you know that police officer responded back to him as if he was a fellow police officer. What am I missing here? There's something else going on here.
It's a bootleg, lower melanin count version of Training Day, because this is something, it's a problem, when you do have that incestuous corruption kind of thing, it does make you start to side eye of, is this person actually in bed with law enforcement? And like you had pointed out, we didn't see law enforcement do all that much unless it was to give him a police escort away from his home. And hopefully there will actually be really significant charges against this man, and maybe even a restraining order to keep them out of that neighborhood, because he is a threat to others.
Yeah, and we're going to see also how the private company responds. There are rules for your behavior in communities like that. And we will see how this committee responds, because as you said, I've read the same updates. Members of this community, they have been complaining about this one man for years. And now, because he continued to play Russian roulette with his reputation, he has finally gone viral. Now that he's viral, all of this background starts to come out. But this background was well noted and well established before this one incident. So by the time it came to us, you had a whole history of this individual terrorizing threatening and trying to control members of that community. Yeah, quite insane. All right, here's what we're gonna do. I got something on the other side that is really, it's a tearjerker if you have a heart. It'll really make you pause and consider our criminal justice system in the United States of America. And I wanna highlight this because it's important. A witness recalls prosecutors threatening them, or witnesses recall prosecutors threatening them and their family to get a wrongful conviction of a Philadelphia man. This is a black man. He's free after 34 years. Let that sink in. 34 years. He was released from a correctional facility in Pennsylvania on June 24th after spending 34 years behind bars, after authorities found that investigators in the case concealed evidence, including some that pointed toward another suspect. His name is Curtis Crossland. Say his name, Curtis Crossland. He's still here. 60-year-old father of 5 and the grandfather was sentenced to life in prison after he was convicted in 1984 for killing a man he did not kill. He was accused of killing a Korean store owner in South Philadelphia. A review by the Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner's Conviction Integrity Unit found the investigators had illegally concealed information about a witness and information that suggested someone else committed the crime. Let me go down to this Atlanta Black Star report. The other witness, Dolores Tilghman, had given false testimony in another murder case, according to prosecutors. She also said she felt coerced into giving investigators information and claimed detectives showed up at her home and woke her up, threatening to arrest her if she did not testify. I want to remind you, not just testify, but testify falsely. Over the years, evidence mounted that Crossland was not the perpetrator in the store owner's death. 3 eyewitnesses to the murder said Crossland wasn't the killer, and a 4th witness identified someone else as the murderer. After he filed, this man has been fighting for his life. He filed 9 post-conviction relief petitions in state court and 4 federal habeas petitions. Crossland, who represented himself after attorneys mishandled his case, was cleared by evidence the Philadelphia police had all along, some of which was sealed with grand jury investigations. The reason why I want to bring that story to your attention, let's put this brother picture back up here. The reason why I wanted to highlight this story is because that is the face of our corrupt criminal justice system in the United States of America. That is the victim of our corruption in this country. One person did not do this to him. 2 people did not do this to him. Groups of individuals, from the police department to the DA's office to a grand jury to a judge, all of them did this to that one man. That one man. And you think this happened independent of a system approach? No, this is part of the system. This is an expression of the system. This man gave 34 years of his life because of some lying cowards who will never be arrested for the illegal things that they did to him. Adrienne, I'll let you have the final word on that.
You know what, the thing that really strikes me is that this is not an anomaly. This is one of the features of the system. And there was a report that was put together by the University of Michigan, wrongful convictions and race in the United States. And it found that innocent black people are 12 times more likely than innocent white people to be convicted of a crime that they didn't commit. This, again, is a feature of the system. The system is not focused on removing bad people from the street. It's about essentially housing and incarcerating black people. Yeah. This is why we need to dismantle this system. We need to build and create a system that is not hinging on race or on subjugation, oppression, capitalism. all of these things, because as a result, we have instances like this, 34 years of your life robbed and stolen from you. Nothing can replace that.
Not a thing, not a thing. No amount of money, no apology, no proclamation from Congress, nothing will remedy what they did to him. Thank you so much, sister. Give out how people can follow you, the name of your book again, because obviously people are enjoying it. I have got to get me a copy. I hope you sign it for me.
Yes,
using my personal privilege here.
Yeah, no, I'd be more than happy to. My book is called Staying in the Game, the Playbook for Beating Workplace Sexual Harassment. And it's definitely not, it's not what you think it is. It's a fun book for sure, but it teaches you essentially how to maintain leverage and a leg up. And if you're a man, I highly recommend reading it, in part because you might find there's some things that you do, but also there's a good chance, it's a very, very high chance that you will be subjected to workplace sexual harassment, and you do not want to be out of a job because you didn't know how to navigate it. But yes, you can pick up my book anywhere books are for sale. I think it's on Amazon right now for maybe $14 on sale. But Staying in the Game, the Playbook for Beating Workplace Sexual Harassment. We just took 2 international book awards in the business category. So that is awesome. You can also find me on Twitter at Adrienne Law and on Instagram at Adrienne Lawrence.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
All right, we got more Indisputable. Stick and stay.
Well, the Young Turks, the Friday show is gonna be awesome. We're gonna help us over here. Drop it.
We became the first ever daily online web television show.
No, the Constitution is the very core of America. The fact that we don't spy on American citizens, that we get a warrant, that we go to a judge, that we have a procedure, that we have due process, that is America.
On top of it, they go, why don't they just stay at their own schools? You gotta realize something. These schools suck. They want people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. You ain't got no straps, you ain't got no boots.
He lit these fires in trash bins all around town out of frustration.
99th most viewed channel today on YouTube.
The Shorties Award.
Best web host.
We passed 1 billion views. Voice Award winner, News and Information Channel, The Young Turks. Oh, another Webby.
The Young Turks.
Can I curse? Yeah! For those of you watching on live stream, yes, we have adopted a pet iguana that showed up at our door.
A haunted version in the dark with our silhouettes.
Now let's get to the best line of the debate. And it was definitely the one against Fox. I told you we were coming.
When you talk about it, when it becomes a problem, our lack of gun control is a problem.
Nonsense BS story is hurting that cause, and they need to wake up and recognize that they are being had by these people.
Biggest gang in America. Question is, how do we make sure that we blame the person who is dead? What kind of democracy is that?
We should never forget that the most powerful people in the world exploited the greatest tragedy in American history to go to war in a country that had a lot of oil.
Rolling thunder. That's what this show is.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Where's the line? We've crossed every line you can imagine.
We are a socialist country. It's socialism for the rich.
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
You don't have to know the truth, just believe what they tell you.
There is no bounds to their monstrous hypocrisy. Tick-tock. I think we're gonna win the Senate in 2020. And I think we're gonna have the House, and I think we're gonna have the presidency. Tick-tock. And in 2020, we're going to clean your clock, and we're gonna run you out of town, and we're gonna have an actual democracy in this country. November of 2020 could also be potentially the greatest day of our lives. Let us whisper of a dream.
nice smack to back that I like.
Say hi to the camera.
I don't like this.
Welcome back to Indisputable. We got a lot of viewer comments. Let me read some of them. Thank you all for chiming in all the time. Indisputable TYT on social media, hashtag Indisputable TYT, and join the YouTube channel. Subscribe, Indisputable TYT. All right, let's get it. TYT member Cray Souffle says, thank God for phone cams. These cuckoo Karen segments are real-time examples of just how sorry and sad aspects of our society has become. Yep. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon says, just think of the millions of times POC went through similar situations, being assaulted by Karens and Kens, people of color, POC, were stopped by cops for no reason, were assaulted by cops, were murdered by cops before cams. And given the videos coming out from a year, 2 years ago, how many are hidden or were deleted by the cops? Super chat, YouTube, Brock Diamond says, you're doing amazing work for the culture. New work in Jay's showing support, and Jersey not here for the racist antics no more on Big Purr. Thank you so much for that. Nicole Smith, thank you for saying the name. Curtis Crossland, thank you. Diallo, I see he called his cop friends to protect him. Yeah. Sister Soul, he never should have been at those people's door. Yeah. Roger Harris, they stole 34 years of this man's life. That's correct. They did, very sad. Twitch, one Casperly one. It was a very hot day and the protesters just wanted to cool the cops. It's their civic duty. Gog one Boogie, they need to pay him for every day of false imprisonment. Well, we'll see what happens. Expect a civil suit to be filed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a remarkable young lady. She has joined me on Indisputable before. Kenya Evelyn, editor for Insider's Voice of Color, a platform amplifying underrepresented perspectives in the news. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I want us to really talk about the importance of diversity in media. There was a time, obviously, in the United States of America, if a white man wasn't saying it, it didn't happen because that's where you got all of your news from, 100%. No exception. And then there started to be some diversity, but even that diversity still had a lot of control elements connected to it, from sponsorships and some other norms that were just celebrated in America at that time. Now you're having a lot of independence in media. This program is one of them. TYT is a network of independent thinking individuals. Why is it important to have this kind of diversity in our storytelling?
Well, because essentially the communities that are most vulnerable to the narrative, our storytelling, are those that look like you and I. Those that are communities that have been centered in the part of our discourse in the last year especially. And so naturally, with the media being one of the most powerful institutions, and if not the more powerful civilian institution in our country, we recognize that there is a special need to hold this institution accountable to the communities that are vulnerable to those narratives, vulnerable to the perceptions and the facts that we convey to audiences every night, potentially one that has the ability to shape the conversations and shape policies, shape legislation, shape our conversations that are happening in our communities across the country, and especially as that relates to the ways that communities of color and more marginalized communities, or people of color, are targeted from that news and from that institution. So the same way that we saw people raising up and shouting out and making their voices heard in the streets last year, as in response to the murder of George Floyd last May, we also saw that there was accountability held within the corporate world that included financial institutions. We saw Hollywood, but media isn't unique to that, and that's where we saw even more recognition of the necessity in amplifying the voices of those with the lived experience to convey community, to report from communities, that isn't something to be shunned. And that isn't necessarily something that we should be prohibiting journalists of color from being able to report and authentically report their communities and adapt that agency, give that agency back to the communities who are saying this is what is represented to us. This is what is happening to us. This is how the policies that people are perpetuating online or perpetuating in our news impact us. And we want to say so in how that is represented, including in how it's communicated within our media institutions.
Very well said. The great catalyst and great protector of true democracy is a strong free press. Not just a free press, not an optical illusion of a free press, but an actual strong free press. Talk about how those dynamics have to work hand in glove in order for you to have a true democracy.
I mean, essentially what we're recognizing is that media has the opportunity and has a commitment and an obligation to hold institutions that are impacting not just policy but people, and that sometimes we also oftentimes pay more attention to the politics and the policy around policies and ignore the impact that has on people. And so as we saw these conversations happening, as we saw both politicians, as we saw institutions, as we saw the corporate world being held accountable to that commitment, to that obligation that we have to hold ourselves and hold institutions, or hold truth to power, as cliche as that phrase may become over time. And as we see, it can be co-opted by even platforms that have ulterior motives or have agendas. We see that obligation was reinforced as communities amplified their voices in the streets, and it amplified that within the corporate world and within newsrooms, asking, who within your masthead is representative of the communities that you are now reporting on? How you report on, how you engage with, how you represent, and how you reflect those communities representative of the people within them. And so we're not immune to that accountability. And so that's what we're seeing happening all across the country and even today.
In real time, you see right now a strategic design to literally cause the messenger to be not believed so that you don't believe the message. One example of that is the terminology fake news. Well, fake news says you no longer need to actually analyze or be critical thinkers. You don't need to research it. As long as they tell you it's fake news, the news can actually be very true. But because they have made a villain out of the messenger, in this case, the media, and they have told you that everyone in the media is not operating in good faith, and they are simply evil practitioners of distributing information, then you no longer connect to the information. I mean, it's really an intentional effort to stop truth from permeating the hearts and minds of a select group of people. What are your thoughts about how problematic that can become? We already see what it's doing now, but do you think it gets worse?
I mean, we've seen throughout history, and I think a telltale sign is, or telltale adage that we tell people within our communities is that if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. And so we've seen throughout institutions, we've seen throughout countries, we've seen throughout governments, we've seen the impact of when you attack the institution of media, the one that is supposed to be a neutral element of holding everyone accountable to what we claim to be and what we aspire to be. When you attack that element, you bring up the opportunity for doubt. You say you're putting up the position, which is a common tactic and propaganda tool for demagogues and dictators, is that you cannot believe the information that is being reported to you. Therefore, I am the sole individual, I am the sole proprietor of institution information, and the sense of safety and justice and liberty that you should feel safe and comfortable in following and trusting. And so when you do that, when you create that doubt in the institution that is supposed to hold these governments and politicians and leaders accountable, that creates the opportunity for you to warp whatever reality you create. And that's how you are able to, warp the mentality, warp the reality of folks who still believe that our government will be overthrown or our government will be reset somehow in September after the failed insurrection that we saw on January 6th of this year. That has impact. What we're seeing is that when we're not holding media outlets accountable for the news that they're reporting, the lies that they're perpetuating, or the propaganda that they're peddling, it has impact. It has the opportunity it has the power to influence, and that influence is what we see throughout the country most recently, and even as we're talking about in our conversations today.
That's a very powerful sentiment you just made. Sometimes these politicians are so slick, Kenya, that the last court that can hold them accountable is the court of public opinion. They are so crafty that criminal courts will not hold them accountable. Civil courts will not hold them accountable, but our court can. And that's why it's important that the media remains strong and independent. Thank you, sister, for being on Indisputable. How can people follow you on social media?
Simple, live from Kenya on just about everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We got more on the other side. Stick and stay, the bullpen is coming. Indisputable.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 15 billion views.
Damn.
All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively, what do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me, or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Cenk and Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
I want you to take on the spirit of one of my sheroes, Harriet Tubman, who said these words: if you hear the dogs barking, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going.
At this particular moment in time, sisters and brothers, we need somebody that is not going to flinch, somebody that's not going to equivocate when it comes to the workaday people of this nation.
You're speaking a language that voters understand, which is you're worth it. I think the key to everything is Nina Turner.
TYT has an exclusive announcement, Move On, which has chosen to endorse Nina Turner for Ohio's 11th congressional district.
We have to tell them right here in the heart,
Right.
why we're running,
Yes.
and what we're gonna do in those spaces and places to make their lives a better place.
I think Nina can change the entire dynamic of American politics.
Because with these hands, we will rise.
Nina Turner steps into the direct fire sometimes in the name of the people.
And is that we have become numb to some of the very real challenges in this country.
Here comes Nina Turner. Here comes Nina Turner. Hope's back.
If you want clean water, clean air, clean food, keep going. If you want a better country, a better world for yourselves and future generations, you must. And if you know that we are in this fight together, you must.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read some of these comments and we'll get into our next segment. Once again, Indisputable TYT. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. YouTube super chat. Rich in Christ love says love. Well, thank you. Love back to you. Mbali Shali, I think. I'm sure I screwed that up. I do apologize in advance. Education, bam, indisputable, ding, ding, 100, fire. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's get it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, we have Ben Q. Ben Q is a columnist and English editor at Elle American. He has some thoughts about the intersection of sports and social justice movements. We may also talk about BLM, Black Lives Matter. Ben, thank you for being on Indisputable. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love the concept of this show, which is basically creating mutual dialogue between conservatives and liberals. I think that's a way forward, not just for America, but the entire humanity effectively. If we can debate these things civilly and respectfully, that's how we're going to find solutions moving forward. So thank you.
And thank you for saying that. Very well said. And I appreciate your sentiment and spirit as it relates to why we do this. Let me first ask you this question because I do not want to presume what you believe. What are your thoughts about players, those that operate as professional athletes, getting involved in social justice issues?
Well, look, I think every sports person has a right to their own voice, and if they really believe, in whatever the movement, and they have a right to express that opinion. My real contention is teams, and this isn't, I'm actually European, I'm from Britain, and this is something we've seen the European Championships, but it's also something we see with, we've seen a lot over America in the past few years, and currently with the women's national soccer team, are these public demonstrations, basically, that are of a political nature. Now, the reason I really don't like that is that we can get into whatever you think about Black Lives Matter and the social justice movements that are often brought up. But what I really, really object to is this crossing over of sport and politics. Now, in this case, it happens to be left-wing politics, but I would like to think right-wing politics would be the same thing, because ultimately sport should be able to be enjoyed by a communist, a fascist, a centrist, a liberal, a conservative, a socialist, whoever. Sport really should be for everyone, and it should be one of the few things that unites us. And when people make these sort of outward displays of political, outward political statements right on the pitch, I think that really undermines that unity of what people enjoy about sport, which is the fact that we all love sports, or most of us love sports, and we're there to enjoy the quality of the sport, not be subjected to political statements.
Okay, so let me try to demystify Black Lives Matter as it relates to politics. Black Lives Matter is not a political movement. They do not subscribe to a political party. They are not a part of a political wing of any party, even some of the more left-leaning parties left to the Democratic Party in the United States of America. Just because something has become politicized does not mean it is inherently political. You have to be very careful about how people will conflate the two. So that's number one. Number two, when we talk about social justice movements were never meant to be political. Let me take you back to the 60s. Dr. King's social justice movement, the civil rights movement of the 1960s and beyond, that was not a political movement. That was a movement for civil and human rights. So that was a movement of dignity. Now, did it become politicized later? Of course it did. All things become politicized on some level. Even sports has some political elements of it if you get in the right room and have the right debate. Let me take you back to what has routinely happened on the field. If you're saying that sports should not have these expressions of various value systems and beliefs. If you're saying that, Q, let me ask you, man, did you have that same philosophy when players to this day, they routinely engage in team prayer? It's not mandated, but the team can get together, they can pray, they can break from that prayer, and they can play the game. They do this on the field. When they make a touchdown, we have seen players take a knee when they make a touchdown to pray to their God. That is part of their value system. This has been accepted. Is that political? Is that bias? Does that mean that atheists cannot enjoy that game because there's this outward expression of a faith system? Explain that to me. Why has nobody made that an issue?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things I'd like to pick up there. I mean, firstly, you're saying that Black Lives Matter is not inherently political, and it's not linked necessarily to a political movement. But I think, I mean, you can say that, and I think, you know, you may be saying that from a genuine place. However, I feel that that's a bit like saying, well, you know, the right to the Second Amendment is not political, even though it's extremely aligned with the Republican Party. The pro-life movement is not political, even though it's extremely aligned with the Republican and conservative movement. So I think the two things are interchangeable, and I think it would be intellectually dishonest to say that Black Lives Matter is not a movement of the left by the left.
Well, explain this to me, but before you go to your second point, what is it about the movement for Black lives that makes it political? And if it is in fact political, as you say, was the civil rights movement led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. political? Was the protest of Muhammad Ali simply political? Were all of these things political and nothing else?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that although I very much admire Dr. Martin Luther King, he was protesting against the politics of the day. So I think that was inherently a political movement. Now, the way that the way that society has developed means that, you know, a vast majority of Americans now agree with Martin Luther King, but a vast majority of Americans don't agree with Black Lives Matter. So to get to your point there, I think that they are. Yes, Dr. Martin Luther King was a political figure as well as a religious figure, but he obviously, but you know what he did at the time did go against the grain. You're absolutely right, but people have come to accept that. Now, maybe it'll be that people will come to accept Black Lives Matter. My opinion is that they won't. So I think that really you can't separate politics from Black Lives Matter or from Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay, I do think that Dr. Martin Luther King's message of judge every man by the content of his character, not the color of his skin, is very different to a lot of the kind of stuff that's coming out of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Well, let me go ahead. Let's talk about that because that one statement is utilized primarily by white people out of context. I actually teach policy at the university. I teach a class on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and I teach critical race theory. I've been teaching critical race theory for 5 years. So let's talk about that statement in just a moment. But I have to address first your issue of conflating politics and policy. While Dr. King's movement was not a movement against the politics of the day, it was in fact a movement against the policy of today, of that particular day. Policy is a social contract between the community and the government. He was fighting for a better social contract, evidenced by the fact that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worked with Democrats and Republicans. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. worked with those on the left and the right. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. actually left the safety net of Black Republican elites in the city of Atlanta that his father was connected to in order to say, we are opening this discussion up for Democrats to get right on this policy. So it was not a fight against the politics or partisan politics. It was literally a fight for better policies. Let me go to your statement about Dr. King and the content of your character statement. Have you heard that whole speech?
Well, I mean, I couldn't recite it, but yeah, I've listened to it. It's part of history class and, you know, on YouTube. Okay. But I mean, I couldn't recite the speech for you.
Okay, so in that speech, Dr. King did talk about how people should be judged. But he was not talking about it in a euphoric sense. He was not talking about it as a practical dynamic of America, but something that maybe could happen one day in the future. So let's talk about what he actually did say about policies in the United States of America. He said that his American dream had actually become an American nightmare with an NBC reporter during an interview after 1964. Dr. King also said that in order to correct what has happened to black folks in America, you need a systems approach rather than an individual approach. Here's what he meant by that. Individual racist people are not your actual problem, but the policies and the statutes are the problem. It is the system bias that's the problem. One of his proposed remedies was to create a universal basic income, a monthly basic income for black people all in the United States of America as a way to create an economic floor that black people can rise upon. So that was his remedy. Literally, that remedy is a similar remedy that people that teach critical race theory talk about. They talk about it from a system perspective rather than an individualistic perspective. He also said that it is one thing to sit at a restaurant where you want to sit. It's another thing to be able to own the restaurant. Well, that was Dr. King making the argument of equity rather than simple equality. He said in another interview that what he was fighting for became a courtesy rather than true equality. He called it genuine equality was not achieved with the civil rights movement. He was critical of his own movement later in his life. So if we're gonna quote Dr. King, brother, on this show, make sure you quote him correctly and take the time to research the man rather than utilize him for a talking point during a debate. I actually have studied the life of Dr. King, and I would really appreciate it if more white people would do the same rather than quoting one damn comment out of one speech that you barely listened to. Do you understand my frustration with that?
I'd say I understand what you're saying, and I accept that I'm no expert on Martin Luther King, but I think that one phrase is actually the encapsulates for me and for lots of people across America and the world the core of the anti-racist movement, which is that basically we should not be seeing people and judging them and treating them on the color of their skin, but the content of their character. So,
but we agree on that.
I accept your criticism, and I'm not going to push back on you on the matter of Martin Luther King because I'm no expert in him.
Okay.
But I think
I do need to correct you on one factual point. You said the vast majority of Americans are against Black Lives Matter. Media Matters, they have this highlighted. The study was done. Actually, 51% of Americans agree with the movement for Black Lives or Black Lives Matter. So you're incorrect on that fact. 51% of Americans are for the movement of Black Lives Matter. Go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's impossible to be against the core and the name of the movement, which is that, Black Lives Matter and Black Lives do indeed matter. And I think that, 95% of Americans would agree on that.
But that's not true. But that's not true. 49% of Americans disagree with it. So you said that most Americans
the movement, and I'm one of those people who is opposed to Black Lives Matter as a movement. I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to the core the core idea, which is that black people should not be getting gunned down or choked or whatever for by police in the way that George Floyd was.
Ben, what elements of the movement do you disagree with for Black Lives?
Well, everything from defunding the police to questions around the nuclear family and overthrowing capitalism. I mean, it's just completely antithetical to everything a conservative believes in. But one thing
describe what you believe defunding the police
is this question, though. You said that Dr. Martin Luther King was very, did not want or was happy to work with Republicans and Democrats. I'd love to hear how Black Lives Matter are working with Republicans and black Republican voices to create a better America for Black Americans.
Yeah, I would love to hear how many Black Republicans
part of the left wing of the Democratic Party.
I got you. So let me respond to that, Ben. I would love to hear how Black Republican leaders are working with these young Black leaders in the Black Lives Matter movement as well. I would like to see what olive branch they have extended to this organization or the movement itself. All I have seen is a token approach and they have basically deflated the agenda that many of them believe in. Let's talk about defund the police since you brought it up. What's your understanding of defund the police? What do you think that means?
Well, I mean, the core of it means that taking a lot of the resources, perhaps all the resources, away from police departments across America. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, a recipe for disaster. And I think most people would agree with that. I mean, what else can it mean? If you have a different definition of it, I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. Defund the police is actually the middle ground. Eliminating the police is the extreme. Defund the police means to prioritize the budget or reprioritize the budget and reimagine what policing can be. Everyone who watches me, they know that I use the example of Ithaca, New York, because Ithaca, New York did not wait for a George Floyd incident or a Breonna Taylor incident. Ithaca, New York, they looked at their 911 calls and they said, you know what? 51% of our 911 calls did not even require a police officer, but it required a social worker or a community liaison. So what did Ithaca, New York do? They decided to create a new policy. The city council voted on this policy that said for every 2 police officers that either get fired, transfer, or resign, we will hire at least 1 social worker to the ranks of the police department, because our community has told us that we are in fact in need of this more so by way of 911 calls than we are in need of the other. Now let's look at the stats, brother. Police solve 2% of major crimes. That is a recent study that just came out 2 weeks ago. 2% is their success rate in the United States of America. It's at 11% in districts that perform to a higher level, but that's your maximum is 11% solve rate by these police officers. There's not a city in America, brother, that has been able to arrest itself out of socioeconomic dysfunction. Name me one city that arrested so many people that it resolved their issue of criminality. There is not one. You have the city of Chicago, they have more police officers than ever before. They have a budget higher than they ever had since the beginning of their charter. Their crime is higher than ever before, especially their violent crime. Their crime is going up. They have more cops, more arrests, more prosecutions, crime is still going up. They got more money, crime is still going up. Here's what you have to do, and I want to get your response on this. If you're not addressing the underlying issues that lead to the criminal activity, such as alcohol addiction, drug addiction, mental health disorders, crimes of survival, if you're not addressing those issues that lead to 88% of the arrests in any city in the first place, how do you think you're going to arrest yourself out of that problem, Ben? How?
Well, listen, I just want to kind of turn that on its head and say that I completely agree with you that actually arresting your way out of problems is not going to fix things. However, if that is really what you believe, which is a more social approach to policing, I completely agree with you, but that's not the message that is coming from Black Lives Matter, or at least that's not the message that's getting through to the conservatives. The message that we're getting is that the police are inherently bad, they're inherently destructive, they're inherently out to get black people, and therefore they should have their police departments defunded. If that is truly the idea that you have for policing, which is a more social approach, so that if someone's being murdered or raped, then obviously you send out a serious force of people to investigate the incident. But if someone is reporting alcohol abuse, or someone has overdosed, or whatever, or someone's selling drugs, then a social worker might actually be a better solution. I agree with you on that, but that's not the message that's getting through to the rest of America.
But is it?
Be to you to say, let's not defund the police, let's reform the police.
Well, yes.
The rallying cry of Black Lives Matter is defund, and defund to me means take and strip the money away from them.
Well, police departments have been historically defunded without the campaign. It's called budget cuts, brother. So there are budget cuts that happen to police departments all over the United States of America. As a matter of fact, I have a list of Republicans that recently voted for budget cuts in their jurisdictions by way of a recent vote. So, but they would say, oh, we're not for defund the police. Well, they literally voted to defund the police. Defunding the police has been a routine operation for various governments all across the United States of America, and they call it budget cuts. So let's be very clear. The reason why I actually agree with the terminology and campaign, defund the police, is because it got your attention. If we would have still been saying reform, 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 nobody would have been paying attention to that conversation. But defund the police got everybody's attention. And here's what they mean by that. They do mean reprioritize, reimagine. Eliminating the police is what you have conflated to defund the police. But here's what I want you to do, brother. I want you to research people like Shar Bates from BET, who had a town hall with other police officers and explained what defund the police means. People like Councilman Antonio Brown, a progressive that sits on the Atlanta City Council, who routinely votes to fund the police, but also has voted to create a different 911 operation system that allows for a social worker to respond rather than a cop if you hit a particular button on the 911 dispatch call. I want you to research people like Park Cannon, state representative, who's for defunding the police, but explains that it is about reimagining what police actually do. And police officers, they want it too, brother, when you break it down the right way, because cops don't want to respond for things they're not trained to respond to. You have to reimagine this whole thing in order to get to an actual remedy.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll take you at your word on that, and I would say that it's the onus is on you then, and the rest of people in the Black Lives Matter movement, which I assume you feel associated with, to say, actually, now we've got your attention. This is, when we talk about defund, we mean reimagine, but that's not the message that's got through so far.
Well, the message is out there, and I think some of it is willful ignorance to say that we don't know that this is the full message. And some of it, I agree, is because those on the left, especially Democrats, are unable to message properly. So I give you that 100%. Brother, my producers are telling me I'm out of time. Man, it has been a great, open, transparent discussion. I appreciate you being in the bullpen.
Thank you very much for having me, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, remember this. We have Deep Dive coming next. With Jordan with Deep Dive. We're gonna make sure we go straight to that right after this show. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.